Welcome back to WTF Is Up. I'm excited to play the interviewer today, and Jeremy is going to tell us all about his brand new book, Unbreakable: How to AI Proof Your Job Search, Career, and Future. And Jeremy, what number book is this for you?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I have more books than kids at this point. So I don't know, 3 or 4 or something like that.
Prolific. You are prolific. Of course, we collaborated on one of them. So, Jeremy, give us the executive summary of this book.
Yeah. So if you had like ChatGPT digest the book and ask for a summary, as people are tending to do these days, it would basically say, hey, when AI came out a couple years ago, everyone was like, ooh, look at this cool new tool. I wonder what I could do with it. What we didn't realize was the tool was not only something that we could use in our jobs, it would change the jobs that were available in the first place. And I think we're starting to see this already, where AI is starting to eat away a little bit at entry level roles and more technical roles. And so the question is, even if you're not in those buckets today, how do you get ready for when AI comes for your role so that you're ready not just to, sort of fight back, but also be prepared to take advantage of the opportunities that come with it.
Awesome. Awesome. So, as you say in the description of the book, it isn't just about what you just described, which is AI replacing you, but if and when that happens, it's about changing what the world needs from you. So, and we've talked in previous episodes about how really the bar is raised now. You've got to be truly great, and that means you probably got to follow something you're actually really interested in because you'll be motivated to be great. But I'm curious what you mean by that. It's not about replacement, the thing that we're all freaked out about and focus on. It's about leveling up your game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reality is that there's this organization called METR, that keeps publishing these like really freaky graphs that say, "Oh, AI is coming for you. It's better at this and better at that." But if you look at the fine print of those graphs, what they're really measuring is AI's performance at the 50th percentile in these specific tasks. So not like world class level this or that, but kind of like average mediocre level by definition. And what that means, of course, is that if you are at the 50th percentile, and we are considering your 6-figure salary versus an AI that can be run for, cents per day, of course, that's a big warning sign. On the other hand, if you're 90th or 99th percentile, maybe this is actually a chance for you not just to get ahead of the AI, but to then to start to use AI in your workflows to push yourself even further and be even more sort of dominant in your field. And so I think that as scary as it sounds, this is actually a chance to really hunker down and focus on that great gift that we all have to contribute to the world.
Love it. Love it. So, so you talk about the 4 human and AI skills that make you unstoppable and really future proof. So do you want to go through those?
Yeah, so I have this sort of surf metaphor. I've got that famous Japanese woodcut on the cover, the tsunami headed towards the shores. And the reality is that surf stands for strengths, which we just talked about, uniting those with uniquely human skills. This is something that you and I have been banding about for over a decade, Omar. The idea that what was once called soft skills are not now the hardest, most important skills. When AI can code, when AI can do data analysis, when AI can design, it's our ability to understand other people, build connections with other people. That's actually the scarce skill set. And R is for, adding in relevant AI skills, which is the idea that it's not just fooling around with ChatGPT, hanging out with Claude, but actually figuring out, how does this apply in my world? How do I get better at doing stuff that wasn't even possible a couple years ago, thanks to AI? And then finally, the last one, F, is for finishing with fellowship, basically saying, hey, how do I build a series of supporters and advocates who will go to bat for me when the chips are down? I think there are going to be some tough calls in the years to come where hiring managers, recruiters have to choose between candidates. And I think historically, they've always chosen based on relationships, and that relational premium is only bound to expand.
I love that. I love the framework, and you've got to have a catchy acronym.
Which I may or may not have used AI to generate.
Well, this is certainly a tsunami, so I'm going to ask AI after this if it's possible to actually surf a tsunami as opposed to a regular wave.
My God.
But you've given us some tools here, perhaps. So, anything else you want to say about success in an actual job? And then I want to pivot to the job search itself and how to stand out.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of these workshops recently where people will say, Jeremy, I don't want to have to change my career. I don't want to have to give up coding just because AI is good at coding. And there's actually a huge chapter in the book that gets back to some of the things that we were teaching LinkedIn's newest grad hires back in 2012 and 13, which is, if you want to be that indispensable member of the team who doesn't have to switch careers. It's not about mastering fancy AI or some kind of technical skills. It's about being the kind of teammate that no one wants to lose. And a lot of it is about understanding the needs of others, really having sort of deep bonds, and being that reliable teammate through thick and thin. I know that sounds like, conventional wisdom, but I do think, especially for Gen Z, for folks who've never been in the workforce before, no one gave them that manual that maybe we got earlier in earlier generations. And so I want them to know exactly what it looks like to be that rock star teammate that everyone counts on.
We went through some of these in our last episode on work hacks, and it really is about separating yourself as an indispensable human. So there's lots of ways you can do that in a job, and you go through some of those in the book. But I'm curious how a job seeker should think about all this. How do you show that you have these skills when they're inherently much harder to quantify, evaluate, assess, demonstrate, especially in an interview setting or a job application setting? And that's part of the reason why these skills are still so valuable and durable is they're not easily outsourced to AI, right? How do you show that if you're a job
Yeah.
seeker?
So I want to start with some good news here. And I say this as a hiring manager myself who's been hiring recently. And I know that the rise of AI and all the labor market disruptions are super unsettling, but I want you to know that in some ways, they are starting to destroy the worst parts of job searching. And I'll give you two examples. Used to be that if you wrote a really good cover letter, that was a huge sign that you cared more, you were more invested, you might be a better worker than someone else. Now everyone can write a really good cover letter. And so the data shows that a really well-written cover letter is now 51% less likely to land you an interview than it would have been 3 or 4 years ago. But what does this mean? Maybe instead of focusing on silly things like cover letters and resumes, we can actually start doing exactly what you said, Omar, which is to walk the talk on the skills that matter. Think about it this way. When I was hiring for this chief of staff role recently, I had like 200 applications that all look the same. ChatGPT wrote their resume, ChatGPT wrote their cover letter, super easy to reject. Then there was this one young woman who reached out, actually found my contact information, got connected through a friend, and made the case directly to me that she was the right fit for the role. Regardless of what she said in that message, the fact that she did what no one else was willing to do, which was to go above and beyond, to show initiative, to show determination. Well, if that's what I want in my company, if that's a skill set that I would love to hire for, guess what? She's already 90% of the way to being hired against everyone else who's just phoning it in, clicking a button inside ChatGPT. And so I don't mean to say that this is easy to do, but I think now, if you really are that person who's driven and hungry in a way that others aren't, this is a chance to let that freak flag fly because it's a signal that will be recognized compared to all the generic clones who are competing against you.
Interesting. So show, not just tell that you have these skills in the job search process itself.
Yes. Don't wait
Interesting.
until you get to the interview room, like win over your future boss before you even apply.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is just really crystallizing those examples for when you do get in the interview room that, again, show, not just tell that this is who you are. This is the human oriented, creative, problem solving, scrappy person they'd be hiring that really humanizes your resume or LinkedIn profile because you got to just remember it's above and beyond not just the other candidates interviewing, but the chance that a bot could do most of your job.
Yes. So important.
So is this the technique that you say in the book gives you a 20x advantage over other job seekers?
Well, it turns out, and this is fascinating, it's actually even more basic than that. I think every job seeker in the world knows that referrals have traditionally mattered. Do you know, Omar, what the traditional sort of leverage or bonus that you get for getting referred is based on like historic data?
I think it's multiple X's. I remember in our book, we said it was 40% of who actually gets hired, even though it was only, I think, 7% of the applicant pool.
That's
So the
exactly
best
right.
success rate,
Yeah, so it was about 10x at the time of the
10x.
publication of our linked book. That being said, I was just looking at this new series of recruiting benchmarks from this company, Gem. It's a big ATS player in this AI space. And essentially what Gem saw is that as soon as ChatGPT came out, that 10x advantage became a 20x advantage. Let that sink in for a second. A 2,000% boost in your odds for a life-changing decision because you spent 30 minutes chatting with an alum for coffee. Like, that's crazy. Okay, but question for you, Omar. What do you think led to that boost? Like, why did referrals, which are always important, become more important?
Probably because of just sheer volume now. I mean, you have bots applying to thousands of jobs. being reviewed by other bots.
I think it's even more fundamental than that. It's like, what was the point of a referral back in the day? It was trust. But there were lots of ways to earn trust. A good cover letter, a great resume, whatever. Now, because we can't trust anything we see on our screen, it might be a hallucination, it might be a deep fake, it might be a North Korean agent. The last thing that we can actually count on for trust are the people we know. And so those last lingering signals get an even bigger boost.
Yeah, especially with so much noise, right? How do you find that signal?
Yes.
And that's what I meant by the volume. It's a really important function that a lot of institutions, whether or not you still believe in journalism or mainstream media, the function there and the function of lots of entities, the function of my center sometimes within higher ed is to help curate what's out there, right? It's to help curate. And what you're talking about is a people curator, a talent curator, a trusted source who says, yeah, you can trust this person. And in this noisy environment, we all need to figure out how to get some signal and to make sense of it, right? And this is clearly an increasingly valuable way to do that. It's perhaps the only way to do that because,
Yeah.
as I said earlier, you don't have good ways of signaling that if you are a job seeker, other than to have a trusted third party who the hiring manager trusts say that on your behalf.
Let me actually plug another book for a second. I'm going to geek out if you don't mind. There's this great book that came out by an economist at Brandeis called Lucky by Design. And it basically talks about how there are all these hidden markets in the world, the dating market, the job market, all that kind of stuff. And what's driving it is usually it's this thing called signaling theory. This guy, Michael Spence, won a whole Nobel Prize in economics based on it. And the whole idea is we're all looking for signal in the noise, that needle in the haystack. And like you said, that haystack has become a hay mountain for recruiters today, which means you've got to work harder to send that signal in a way that's plausible, that's compelling, that's not just another piece of hay, another piece of noise.
Totally, totally. So let's get a little bit more hands-on and practical here for a minute. What advice do you have for job seekers who may have successfully used that strategy, gotten an internal referral, and been lucky enough to actually get an interview, which maybe in this environment for the most in-demand jobs is actually a pretty successful outcome for many people. But they're not getting past that recruiter screen. What advice do you have for those folks? Because we all know the hiring manager is the one that really feels the pain, really makes the decision.
Yeah, so I think this goes back to marketing 101, which we know so well, Omar, which is know your audience. If you are a recruiter today, you are a talent mercenary. Your goal is not to find the best person for the role who will serve for 27 years honorably, but to get a good enough body in the seat as fast as possible. Because get this, Omar, the average American recruiter in 2026, after all these layoffs, is now juggling 30 to 40 open roles. Multiply that by at least a couple hundred or a couple thousand applications per role. These guys are buried. And so your job in that recruiter screen is not to knock their socks off and be a domain expert, but to be that perfect person who says, hey, if you bring me forward in this process, not only won't you get fired, but you might even be promoted. And that person fills two boxes. Number one, you got to be competent enough. So at least, know what you're talking about, know your story, but also be warm. When sociologists go around the world and they interview people about hey, what are you looking for in a teammate? They say, yeah, I want someone who can do the job, but I also want someone who I want to do the job with. And so rather than be that know-it-all on the phone screen, really connect on a human level. Come across as engaging, collaborative, genuine, all this stuff that a recruiter is going to say, hey, you've put my spidey sense at ease. I feel confident to bring you forward in this process.
And then when you get to the hiring team or the hiring manager, I assume you pivot that strategy entirely and you don't need to worry about competence nor warmth.
Well, that's right. You just throw it all out the window and you become a robot. No cheating with Cluely, none of that nonsense. It still matters. But I think that in some ways it becomes more specific. If you think about this, Omar, when you hire at Baden, when you've hired at Salesforce and other places, are you hiring just for the fun of it? Or to take pity on job seekers?
Absolutely not. In fact, I've worked really hard to convince lots of other people that we need to hire somebody. Right?
Heck yeah.
It's hard to do.
You just jump through all these hoops to get there. And those hoops are even tighter in 2026 because no one's hiring. So at that point, the only reason you'd be doing this is you have a massive headache to solve. You've got this giant fire burning in your backyard. You're like, hey, I need someone who can put this out, who can solve these problems for me. So now you don't walk into that hiring manager job interview saying, here's why I want to work at Google. Here's why I want to be a software engineer. Say, here's why I'm excited to solve your problem. Here's what I can do about these challenges. Here's how I can make your life easier. If you've got that kind of audience orientation, that's how you close the deal.
Yeah. And the best way to make that case is not just to say, here's what I would do, here's the ideas I have, here's that attitude and the hunger and the scrap that I have to do it. But again, people need shortcuts right now. How do you just make it very clear that you've done that thing
Yes.
already? You've done that specific thing, right? Really look closely at that job description, listen to what the recruiter has told you in the first screen about what the needs are that need to be filled, and pull out those examples of when you've actually done it. Because even if it's a totally different job, if you can pull out examples and use cases that are exactly what they need, that gives them that extra level of comfort that I'm not taking I'm not taking a flyer on this person, right? We talked in our last episode about one of the worst messages you can send in an interview is, "Well, I'd like to learn how to do that on this job."
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will just say, like, this goes right back to this idea of human skills, storytelling.
Mhm.
How many ChatGPT narrations have moved you to take action, have changed your mind about something? Zero, because we as a species are not moved by numbers and charts. We're moved by stories that we engage with. So please make yourself the hero of your story, work on your storytelling skills, make it stick in your interviewer's brain so they have no choice but to hire you because they can't forget you.
That's great. We can't do a demo right now on a podcast, but can you just talk maybe at a high level about how you can use AI to pull out those examples, to be more targeted, and how you talk with a recruiting or hiring team, and maybe even to tell those stories?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think we may have demonstrated this to the Teach for America crew that we were doing a boot camp for recently. But there's this tool that I really love called Udly. It's udly.ai for anyone who wants to look it up.
Spell it, spell it.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yoodli. It's like a throwback to the weird days of internet names like Yahoo. That being said, unlike ChatGPT and all these tools that tends to make us sound more robotic, those awful cover letters that we were talking about, Udly actually focuses on the warmth angle. Like, are you speaking with a cadence and a style that's pleasing to the ear? And most importantly, are your stories sticking? Do they have those key components? The tension, the challenge, the resolution, the hero's journey that our basic, our species has been bred over millennia to really thrive on.
Yeah, so taking that classic problem action result format to the next level.
Absolutely.
Great, great. Well, one last question I wanted to ask is just about how people should be thinking about the job search as a whole for a second. Can we abstract out a little bit and just recognize that, a lot of people listening to this might not even be seeking full-time work, that old 9 to 5, clock in, clock out. We know that people are pursuing their own ventures. We know people are side hustling, side stacking. We know that that's actually over half of Gen Z workers who have full-time jobs have another thing. So can you just talk about your take on all of these strategies and even just overall how we should think about, jobs versus gigs? Are we creating our own opportunity or are we seeking that which already exists?
Yeah. Now, this is such an important note to end on because really, I think the idea that you put all your eggs in one job basket not only is dangerous from a financial perspective, given all the layoffs and everything going on, but it's dangerous to your soul. Basically, that you've said this one thing is going to give me all the meaning in my life. And then all of a sudden, it's that rug is pulled out from underneath you. Versus, as you've seen, I'm sure, Omar, like entrepreneurship in this country is blowing up right now. Whether it's because people are excited about it or nervous about AI and jobs, I think it's a great thing because if we all have these portfolio approaches to life, where we're filling up multiple baskets and we're getting meaning from multiple sources, it not only makes us more resilient, but I think it gives us a chance to live out our truest purpose, which is to find something that we love doing, that's useful for others. And even if it's not in a classic W-2 job, so be it. So I encourage everyone out there, yeah, job search your heart out, but save a little bit of that portfolio allocation for something that you're also excited about. It may not be a thriving business tomorrow, but plant that seed today. You never know where it'll go next.
That's great. That's great. So diversify your financial portfolio, diversify your income streams, diversify your work and your interests, and diversify your life. Diversity is beautiful. Jeremy, congratulations on the book. Everyone check it out. It's called Unbreakable. And thanks for joining us on WTF Is Up.
All right.